All right, awesome. It's nice to see everyone was able to join. Thank you. I recognize a few names. So today we'll talk about Wisconsin and Washington with Joanna here. And so I'll just start with my introduction. My name is Bola Olaniyan. I am the program director for Wisconsin and Washington. I went to Madison for undergrad and grad school and have been in this role for almost 5 years, so 4.5 years or so. And I'll let Joanna introduce herself.
Yeah, my name is Joanna Poinsett. I am the Assistant Director of Study Abroad Enrollment Management with IAP. And I've been with IAP since 2016, but I moved into this new role last year, which was an interesting time to start. And in that role, I started working as a program coordinator for the Wisconsin and Washington program. So I serve as the main advisor, helping students with the application process. And then I'm based in Madison, so I'm helping Bola from afar and kind of being the voice, I guess, on campus for the program.
Great. So we'll be going back and forth, but if there are any questions along the way, feel free to use the chat. And so we'll try to catch that or save it to the end. And then there's some time to talk at the end and have questions and all of that. So I like to start with a little overview of how Wisconsin and Washington came to be. And so the International Division had a fall semester in International Affairs in DC starting about 20 years ago at this point. Political Science had a summer version of their internship program, also about 20 years ago. And then in 2017, the program was merged into IAP, Study Abroad, where it became the first study away program. And so just how UW-Madison defines study away, same as study abroad minus the international part. Students still apply through IAP website, the application process. They're registered in a placeholder course when they're away or here in DC. Course equivalents are awarded after the semester for each course that is taken. And we'll talk a little bit more about those courses. And then credit is in residence credit and it counts towards the GPA. So seniors can take this if they're going to graduate their spring semester. So that is open to all. I'd like to cover the program goals before moving over to Joanna. So program goals give students with an interest in politics, policy, government, direct political experience, or really professional experience that will allow them to develop professional skills, create professional networks for themselves, and put themselves in a position to be successful later on, not just in DC. We want to integrate theoretical with academic work they've done on campus with the pragmatic work of the professional workplace. And also give students the opportunity to explore close up the variety of possible career paths that exist, not just in DC, but across the country, across the world. Engage professionals in those fields, mostly alumni, but use the assignments, for informational interviews, collaborations, all of that. So that's a little bit about our program goals.
So next I'm going to talk about the program structure. So the program is offered fall semester, spring semester, and then the summer. So for both fall, spring, or I guess first semester and summer, I should say, students do take a non-credit prep course. That's something that we administer through Canvas, and it's not a course that they need to enroll on, like on campus. It's a course that we'll invite students to after they're accepted into the program. But it is something we expect students to spend a significant amount of time on. There's different modules to help them think about their resume, their cover letter, interview preparation, thinking about adjustment to life in DC and how to present yourself in a professional manner. And so at this time, that's also when they're usually applying for internships. And we'll talk kind of a little bit in a few slides about the internship specifics, but it's really meant to kind of help them put their best foot forward in the interview process for internships and really find a good internship placement for them. And so again, it can be a significant amount of work, and that's something we try to let students know about in the application process, so that if they are thinking about their courses on campus and any work that they're doing, that they need to factor into that. This Canvas course. And so I guess as advisors, that's something that can be helpful for you all to know when you are talking to students who are interested in this program. And then in terms of the internship, for fall and spring, usually students are looking at interning about 30 to 32 hours a week because they'll also be taking 3 4-credit courses on the program. And so with that, there's kind of a core policy course that students take. There's a core professional development course that kind of ties in a lot with their internship. And then they have the option to choose from 2 electives. So there's either a foreign policy course, which is taught by Ambassador Don Planty, or there's a course that focuses more on kind of US politics. So there's a course on Congress, and then a course on, that's fall, and then spring is usually a course on presidential campaigns. And those are taught by people that are like professionals in the field and like actively working in the field. And so I think it's really exciting for students to hear directly from kind of people with a different background and a different viewpoint on things, and like purely an academic focus. They're really thinking about the practical application of these things. And then in the summer, students are only taking the professional development course. And so with that, we would expect students to work about 35 to 40 hours a week in their internship. So eligibility for the program, we do like to stress that this program is open to students of all majors. Again, Bola kind of covered the founding of this program in political science. And so, you know, we definitely, as you can see in the chart there, we see a lot of political science majors, a lot of public policy certificate students, which is great. But we're really starting to see an increase of students from all different majors. So international studies is becoming a big one with the foreign policy course that we teach. We're also seeing a lot of economics students, history, honor students, legal studies, journalism, like criminal justice certificates. I think we even had like a biology major, I think for this summer or this past spring, and she was doing like an internship at the National Health Research Center. So, I mean, there really is an opportunity for students of all sorts of majors. And, you know, if they come to us, and especially if they're working with you all and say, this is something of interest to me, we can kind of help them think about, you know, internship placements in ways that this program can connect to what they're studying on campus. And then in regards to kind of the standing of students, so we do prefer junior and senior students. That just helps in terms of them having kind of the, I guess, maturity to be out in the work field in Washington, DC. And that also helps because they usually have a little bit more work background and experience, which will be really helpful in the internship search process. I think for like summer, sometimes we'll see students that have just finished their sophomore year, and that's fine, they're eligible as well. So there's a 3.0 cumulative GPA requirement, but if a student's just under that, we'll, you know, of course, take that into consideration along with the rest of the application that they present. No language prerequisite, and then for all of our programs, we always say good academic and disciplinary standing. So if they aren't academic or disciplinary, or I guess non-academic probation, then they wouldn't be eligible for the program. So the application for this program is a little bit different than some of our others. So as Bola mentioned, students still do the online application through the UW Study Abroad website. But we do ask a little bit different essay questions. We really are trying to focus on what students' goals are, what their professional interests are. We ask a little bit about just kind of what else they're involved in on campus and what kind of background work experience they have. We ask for a copy of their resume, and that's a big thing that we look at in the application review process. Again, just seeing, you know, what previous work experience they have, but even if it's, you know, something that seems completely unrelated, if they're able to present it in a way and connect it to their skills, that's really great. And that's kind of the things that we're looking for. So we see students that have interned at the state capitol before, and we see students that have just been, you know, cashiers, and both are great as long as they know how to kind of talk about the skills that they've learned from previous jobs. We also do require a letter of recommendation. And so usually that would be from a past supervisor or a professor. And then students who kind of get through the first round of application review are invited to interview. And so that's kind of the final step that we have before acceptance. And so we've been doing virtual interviews, obviously. Usually Bola's in on every interview, and then myself and some members of our working group will interview students as well. And again, just really trying to get a sense for their interest in the program, their interest in internships, how much really they've been preparing for this, because it's really helpful if students come in with a good sense of what they're looking for. And again, just trying to see that they can make those connections to the skills that they have and the skills they're looking to develop. And then, so for timelines for upcoming applications, we do want to note our spring 2022 semester program application is open now, and the deadline to apply is September 17th. So if you have any interested students, definitely let them know that is open and available, and we'll be kind of closing that in a few months now. And then the summer and fall program applications will be opening soon. I think we're looking at probably like the first week of August or so. So again, if you have students that are interested, definitely tell them to keep an eye on our website. Again, questions about the application can always come to me. And then if it's something that I need a little more input on, I can connect them with Bola as well.
Great. All right. So, this is a big question that I think advisors ask and obviously students ask. So how are internships found? So Joanna started talking about the preparation course. So this was built into Canvas with about 7 or so modules to help students really think about their interests. They fill out an interest form through that. We have a conversation with every single student, whether it's face-to-face, Zoom, or email conversation, to really have them lay out a little bit more in detail where they've been looking, where they've already applied maybe, and just really understand where they are in this process. We use that form to kind of help us find suggestions of places, or even connect them to alumni that we know at organizations that might be hiring, or alums themselves that might be hiring for interns. So it's definitely a student-led process. We do not place students. We do not guarantee internships, but I would pretty much say we have basically 100% track record. This summer was a little bumpy, but we got through it and all of them ended up with internships. Luckily, because there's a class connected to the internship, we do not put too much pressure on students to have an internship before they show up in DC, but about 95% of them do. The ones that usually linger, we are constantly talking to alumni with our connections through federal relations here, and then also Cynthia Williams, who works in the DC office for the international division. So we use everything in our arsenal to try to find students internships, or at least connect them to a place to apply to or interview for. So yes, students are ultimately responsible, but we are there supporting them every step of the way. So what kind of internships are possible? This is just a very short list of what exists. So you can see everything from the White House to the Hill to smaller nonprofits, larger nonprofits, news organizations, health organizations, as mentioned earlier, internationally focused. So we do pretty much try to share everything that we find. That's any place that's hiring, we share that with students as much as possible. So there's just endless opportunities, and students are pretty good at identifying places once they get through the prep course. They also get a peer advisor while they're in the prep course, so that also kind of helps them brainstorm a little bit, having someone else to talk to, and connecting with each other to see, where are other people applying that might hire more than one. So those are kind of the foci of our internships.
Yeah, and just one thing I was going to add about the internships. I think sometimes students, when they're applying for the program, get in their head that they want this like very prestigious internship. We hear a lot of students who are like, I want to work for the State Department, and that's great. And we have students in that. But sometimes those internship applications are very early and they can be very selective. And so one thing we definitely try to do is to encourage students to, again, think about things that maybe are opportunities they have never heard of, but will get them to work on the skills or the experience that they're looking to develop. So I think that's something that I've had to learn coming into this myself. Is like that there are students who definitely get some really big, well-known internships, but so many students get such valuable experience from internships with organizations that I'd not heard before, but then I get to learn about. So And then we wanted to talk about the cost of attendance and the cost of the program, because we know that this is always a big thing that students are thinking about is, how do you fund my time away or abroad? And I think, there's this idea that Washington, D.C. is very expensive, which definitely, I think the cost of living in D.C. is higher than in Madison. I actually was just there this past weekend, and it's a little shocking sometimes when you are at a restaurant and see some prices. But the nice thing is about this program is that the program fee really includes a lot of the things that can add a lot of cost to being in DC. So you'll see on the left is the kind of the cost of attendance for a semester on campus. And then on the right is kind of thinking about the Wisconsin and Washington program fee. So the base cost that's noted there is the program fee. And so that's what students are going to be billed for the program. And that's billed through the bursar's office because students still remain enrolled full time. And so it'll come like as an e-bill, just as their normal tuition would, and they don't pay UW-Madison tuition for the term that they are on the program. So the base cost does include housing, and it's housing right in Capitol Hill, like, a block away from the Capitol and Supreme Court and things. So definitely probably at a price that they would not otherwise get. So it does include housing. It also includes things like insurance, Metro card. So again, another big piece is going to be transportation around the city, and that Metro card cost, unlimited rides is included in that program fee amount. It includes academic expenses kind of just for the classroom space and all sorts of things. So they're not really paying for like some of the things out of pocket that they would here at UW-Madison. And so then with that, if you look at the cost sheets, which are on our program page on our website, at the top is the program fee, and that's kind of that cost we just covered. And the next thing that you can see and students can see is what we call the estimated additional expenses. So that's going to cover things that students would need to pay out of pocket. So yeah, meals, any additional transportation that they take, and just like additional expenses that they have, buying souvenirs or whatnot. And so we try to estimate that out as best as possible. And we get feedback from students after every semester and evaluations where we ask them, how accurate was that? Was it more? Was it less? What did you spend money on that you didn't expect? What was less than you expected? So we do kind of try to look at those and keep them as realistic as possible. But obviously those things can flex just based on students' personal spending habits. And so with that, the third kind of section you'll see on our cost sheets is the cost of attendance amount. And so that's the cost per semester that Bola is listed here under the kind of the right side. Yeah, right there. So again, kind of comparing it to the cost of attendance on Madison, I mean, you can see for non-residents, it's even less than the expected cost of attendance for Madison. And even for Wisconsin residents and Minnesota residents, it's pretty comparable. And so that's something we like to note, because I think sometimes students will jump straight to the cost of attendance. But I think looking at kind of the program fee, and then we try to work with students on, or let them know that the estimated expenses are definitely something that they can try and, flex as much as possible. And that kind of gets us to that cost of attendance number. And the cost of attendance number is used for things like financial aid, which we'll discuss in a second, in terms of for funding resources and whatnot. So with that, for funding, again, something that students often ask about is kind of do you have scholarships available? So there are scholarships available through IAP. So the ones that we have listed on our website, some will be specific to study abroad or international programs, but some of our more general ones are available and open to students on this program, which is a great resource, and definitely something that we would encourage them to look at. Sometimes students can get a preference if they're doing what we call a signature program, which is what the Wisconsin and Washington program falls under that. Political science department also offers scholarships for their majors. So if you're maybe a certificate advisor and your student is a poli-sci major, definitely something to remind them of or encourage them about. And that's information that we have great partnerships with the poli-sci department that let us know when they open their application for this specific scholarship, and we let the students know, and then they kind of work with the students on what they need for that. And then, as I kind of mentioned, the program is eligible for financial aid. So again, students can definitely apply for the FAFSA. And again, we have great partnerships with the Office of Student Financial Aid. I don't know, Heidi might be in here, but Heidi Johnson is really great and helps us a lot with our programs and helping students connect that piece of using their financial aid to participate in one of our programs. Oh, there she is. And so, yeah, we really appreciate the help from our campus partners and things like this, because we do recognize that funding is a huge piece for students when we're looking to study on one of our programs. And again, especially this program. Sometimes students will ask about internships and looking for paid internships. So that is possible. It's not something that we deny. If they can find a paid internship and it's what they're looking for, they are welcome to it. But a few things we try to let students know is that paid internships are not guaranteed. I mean, any internship is not necessarily guaranteed, but especially paid ones, they can be more competitive. And then even if they find a paid internship, it is not necessarily going to cover everything that they might get from a scholarship. And so while it's great if they need that, if they are budgeting for the program solely with the hopes of getting a paid internship, I think that's something we definitely want to talk to them about and consider other funding options and other things that are just going to be more reliable and probably more potentially more helpful for them anyway. So again, something they can do, but I would just say we don't want to have students banking on getting a paid internship. Okay, so while in DC, like I said, I just got a chance to go, I think it was last weekend now, which is great. I got a chance to meet Bola. I just happened to be there, so I stopped in. Got to see our classroom building, and it really is pretty impressive how close it is to the heart of the capital area in DC. So students, like I said, housing's included, and students do live together in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, usually in a 2 or 4 person kind of apartment style. And then the building is shared with other students who are in Washington, DC for internships usually. We work with an organization there that provides housing for internship students. But usually we really try to stick UW-Madison students and keep them with other UW-Madison students on the program. And so we'll ask them for housing preferences and things like that. But then the apartments that they're living in are just a block or so away from the classroom building that we have now, and that is there's a classroom and there's office buildings there, and so we have some of the federal relations staff located in that office as well. They have access to there's a conference room there for meetings, and then there's a classroom building itself, the classroom itself. And so spring and fall courses are taught on Tuesday evenings and then Wednesdays. The summer courses are taught usually just a weekday evening because there's only that one course. And so when students aren't in class or at their apartments, that's, again, they're going to be at their internships. And so that's where that Metro card can help, because obviously they're pretty close to each other in terms of the classroom and the apartments, but then internships could be throughout the city. So the Metro card will help students to get where they need to go. Then in terms of the on-site support, we obviously have Bola as our program director. And like she said, she's been there since the kind of program started up. So she's a great support for students. I can say that, seeing the post-program evaluations, I think students really form a great connection with Bola, which is awesome to see. And our alumni feel very strongly they want to keep helping the program and helping students through. And then we also have our international policy officer, Cynthia Williams. So again, she is doing her own work with kind of the international policy and federal relations and things, but she's also a great support for students, especially ones with the international or kind of foreign policy focus, because she has some really great connections to connect students with. And so those are our 2 staff on site. And then of course, myself at UW-Madison, I'm here to help students. And then we have kind of a working group of some advisors on campus that are always helpful for us to connect with, to get ideas on how can we reach students and how can we help support your students. And then we also have the mentor program, I think Bola mentioned. And so students are kind of connected with a mentor, usually like an alumni, past program participant. And I would say, again, something that I think is has been really great to see in working with this program, just how strong that support is. We've done information sessions for students kind of virtually throughout this past year. And we've had one of them, I think we had 5 or 6 returning students. And some of them were like, they had graduated, they did the program years ago. And so they're, working in DC now, but they want to come and help and promote the program and talk to students. And they always just have really great advice for students. They know what it's like, they've been through the internship process. And so I think that connection is so big for students because it's kind of someone else who knows what they're going through and, who is a badge of themselves and can really understand, what that experience is like for them. And then in terms of health and safety support, so I think I mentioned in the cost, we do enroll students in CISI insurance. That's the same insurance that we use for all of our study abroad programs. They get a bit of a different policy for like a domestic program. They get that for the entirety of their program. And then we have the IIP, UW Study Abroad office has a 24/7 emergency phone. So students can always call that if anything comes up. And if needed, we can help connect them with CISI if there's something, a medical emergency. That's really helpful. And then the Washington Intern Student Housing, the organization we use for housing, also has a 24/7 support available. So students are always have someone to reach out to if they need. And so we are happy to help them.
Great. Okay, so I will kind of transition into what do students actually do while they're in DC. So some of the fun pictures you can see, White House tours, taking pictures in front of the Capitol, speaker's balcony, had some pretty prestigious alumni, state representatives kind of interact. They're always happy to try to fit our students in. A couple more of that, the Big Ten basketball championship was going on in DC, so students have been able to do that, go up to New York, Women's March, that kind of thing. I think there's one more, some of our virtual speakers, so they were able to talk to some of our alumni down in Brazil. So you can see that we've done lots of different things over the past year that I think will keep kind of a blend of all of that moving forward. Just a few student reviews, just to hype up the program a little bit more. So Wisconsin and Washington truly helped me develop myself personally and professionally. I believe it's prepared them well for the next steps in their career. No idea where they would be without having been a participant. And then a few more, I think one of the ones I like the most, this program isn't just for political science majors. As we said before, it's for anyone who wants to have a meaningful internship experience and live in DC. So that's something we're really focusing on more and more, just to make sure that students of all backgrounds, majors are interested and at least know that the program exists and can exist for them. A little bit about what students do after the program. So in DC, definitely have quite a cohort of former students here, professional positions on Capitol Hill. Some students have extended their internships and asked for payment full-time after their specific internships where they work. So we had a few working at FEMA. They were able to keep their internship for their last year at Madison, and then were presented with a full-time job offer, which is pretty cool in the government. Elsewhere, master's degrees, law school, Dane County board races, back on campus, law school, all that fun stuff. So students really take their experiences everywhere. And so even though we do definitely focus on DC and DC connections while they're here, we do know that, they're going to apply it to whatever they feel called to. And then we're reaching the end, and so we can have a conversation after this. But for next steps, and I'll let Joanna step in after I kind of go over them. So for advisors, why we invited you, we see that course equivalencies are a big thing that students look at. So right now on our website, you can see that we have political science, international studies, I think a sociology and a history class that are already approved. So if you listening to what we've said that we talk about in our courses or the all of that have. Please ask to see our syllabus to pre-approve any courses in your department so that we can put that up on our website and students can see that it really is a broad brush. It's a lot easier for advisors to let us know what the course needs to include or the student needs to do, so that students know that this is a possibility for them. Feel free to share any additional internship funding resources you come across. So I know some departments might have some kind of internship fund or know of other opportunities for their majors. So please feel free to share that. As Joanna mentioned earlier, political science has a pretty good fund for the Wisconsin-Washington or internship funding anyway. So we work really closely with them and help them facilitate that. And so we're happy to kind of do that if that exists elsewhere. And also, if you could sign up for our email listserv, if that's not how you found out about this, and follow us on social media. Students do takeovers on our Instagram, and I think we've seen an increase of students applying to our program and interviewing with us, noting that they saw someone was interning at a specific place that they wanted to apply to. And because they saw the intricate details of what the students were doing, they were willing to take the step and see what would come of it. And so on the right side there, you can see study abroad next steps. This is just to share kind of what we're thinking about and where we hope that the program is going. And so we're always finding better ways to connect with campus partners. So as you saw our list of student majors, it's far longer than that, but we're looking for ways to do fun things, cool things with our campus partners across the board. And then we're working towards less barriers, both financially and otherwise, which speaks to the internship funding, but also just in general about how students get to the program, how students get to DC, and what they can do while they're out here. And so we're always happy to brainstorm any ideas that come up. We've had conversations with Morgridge scholars just to, be a benefit for each other and so that they're aware of us. So it's something as small as, just, oh yes, we're going to tell our students about your program, and as big as, an official kind of partnership or anything we can think of. So I'll let Joanna jump in, and then if there are any questions, we're happy to stick around and talk.
Yeah, I think Bola covered it pretty well, kind of like what the main things that we're hoping that you all might take away from this and think about ways that you could help and ways that we can help you. I guess one thing I do like to plug is I think it's a pretty cool experience. I also work with our Global Gateway programs. So that's a partnership that we have with the Office of Student Financial Aid. And it's a program that's kind of meant for students who may not have the financial resources to study abroad. And it's a pretty much fully funded program, program costs, airfare, all of that included. So the reason I bring this up is because this summer is going to be our first domestic Global Gateway program. So in August, we'll have a group of about 13 students. They're heading up to Washington, DC, with a political science professor, David Cannon, is going to lead that program. The kind of class he'll teach is on race and politics in the US. And so this is another thing that we hope we can kind of do as a kind of a next step, maybe not specific for this program, but one thing we are hoping is that we can kind of make the connection for these students of these opportunities in Washington, DC, and for them to see that it is possible to kind of to do a program there, to spend some time there, to make those connections to the city and to the community and the workforce there. So we're hopeful, again, wish us luck, is that comes up next month. And then that is actually going to be our first in-person program back in DC since the spring 2020 semester, when we kind of had to abruptly end the Wisconsin-Washington program. So in case you all weren't aware, we actually have been running the program on a virtual basis for the past 3 terms. And so summer 2020, we took a little break to figure out what we were doing. And then fall 2020, spring 2021, and summer 2020 have all been virtual programs. And again, like huge kudos to the group there in DC for pulling that together and making that shift. But we actually were able to have, I don't remember the exact number, but it was somewhere in the teens of participants for this summer. As Bola mentioned, it's a little tricky with internships because they did have to find virtual internships, but again, seems like all were able to do so. And I think it's been a really interesting way to kind of rethink the program and to see what is working really well, and to kind of think about new ways that students can engage with the city and with everything that's going on there. And so fall 2020 will be back. No, fall 2021. What year are we? Okay, fall 2021 will be back in person in DC for the Wisconsin and Washington program. And then, of course, as we mentioned, spring 2022. Again, all this is contingent on things, continuing to go smoothly with the pandemic. But spring 2022, again, planning to be in person again. So yeah, it's really exciting to kind of have students be back, and we're really, again, happy that we could provide an alternative way for students to engage in the program. So if you have students that have done the program in one of the last 3 terms, that might be an interesting way to kind of connect with them, check in with them, and see what they thought of kind of that virtual format and the virtual internship experience. I think we've all learned that working, having experience completing a job remotely is probably going to be very helpful in the future. So we really appreciated the flexibility and kind of the, I guess it's courage, but like the just the fact that the students were willing to go on this kind of with us and to really engage in the courses. It's been really great to see. So just a few things there just to let you guys know what has been going on and kind of the, again, next steps and what we're looking forward to with the program.
So yeah, we'll open it up to questions. Yes, we're excited. If there are no questions, feel free to hop off. All right, I note your question, Janet. Yeah, so we've had some students apply to DC Public Defender Service, which I think maybe would be the main one that they've been coming to you to for fact patterns. And so I haven't found like a general resource for them. I've actually been connecting those few students to either my former student who still lives in DC and is in law school now. She has been very helpful in at least talking to students through that since she went through it. She was actually the one that was able to extend her internship with them before moving on. And sometimes I connect them to my mom, who actually works at the law school in Madison. And so sometimes she's able to kind of look over students' materials if they're early on. But it's definitely something we've noted. Yep, that's my mom. Awesome. All right, one of my questions is virtual study abroad options even after things return to normal. That's a great question, and something that has been brought up. Right now, we're focusing on just fully in person, even if internships might not be. It would definitely take a different kind of setup to be able to do both. But I think it's definitely that it's opened up people's eyes to see that there's definitely a possibility and definitely an interest from students to be able to do this program in a different way. So I'm not sure what will ever come of it or anything like that, but we've noted that and have been thinking about it. Have some students from econ who wish to do Wisconsin, Washington during fall, spring, and take a class or 2 online from UW. Are there rules about this? There are no specific rules, but we do tell them it is pretty hectic. A lot of the assignments for all 3 of those classes are really focused on getting students out into DC, talking to people, meeting people, going to briefings, interacting at their internship. The few students that I've overheard that took extra classes while in person definitely were a little bit more tired than the rest of them. And the ones that did that even virtually could feel the difference in the effort that they had to put forth, specifically virtually. But it's definitely possible, but it would definitely, I think it would detract from them being able to focus on getting around DC and meeting people and all of that. So we tell them to think very critically about it. It definitely would not take more than 1 if they do it, but I would definitely understand why they would want to, and they have to make that decision. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that is something that, well, I guess two things. First, I'm not sure, I think, Alicia, you asked about other institutions. That I'm not sure about in terms of like concurrent enrollment rules, but if they are looking to take another UW-Madison course, like Bola mentioned, that, yes, is possible. The two things we always like to stress with that is one, they need to let us know, specifically me, because otherwise we enroll them in an 18 credit placeholder. So they're going to be blocked from doing that, or our enrollment placeholder will be blocked if they're already enrolled. So we just coordinate that with them. And that's kind of where we give them a little spiel of like, make sure that you are accommodating your internship times and your class times and, just everything else going on. The other thing to note is from financial perspective, any additional courses are not covered in our program fee. So we would anticipate they would have to pay the tuition for that separately. So that's another thing we'd like to make students aware of. Obviously, again, that's something we can do. So if you have students asking, you can always refer them to me. But yeah, at least for UW-Madison courses and maybe some system courses, we can potentially make it work. And we appreciate you encouraging them to focus on the program.
Yes, definitely. Any other questions? Yeah, and if anything comes up afterwards, we're going to send the recording out. As we said, really thinking about the courses that exist in your portfolio would be really helpful for us, definitely helpful for students to see it on our website. So once they're official, we can throw them up there. It helps us in advising and all of that. So feel free to chat us up about that as well. We're happy to send you the syllabus or just tell you what we talk about and cover. Yeah, if there's nothing else, feel free to exit and I'll just stick around until everyone's gone. But thank you.